it's me, Rachel. All right, I think we're live this time. It's working. Happy Wednesday. So I am here in Washington. We just moved to our new location. So many of you know that we're bopping around this summer. Hi, Erin. So glad you're here. Hello, honey. Yeah, so I'm committed to doing these lives every Wednesday, and today I'm going to be talking about, Lisa's here too. Hey, Lisa. Hi, honey. Glad you're here. Awesome. I'm going to be talking about and doing a meditation for us today on self-observation, not self-judgment. Boy, oh boy, there is a lot around that. So just sitting here in this sweet little rocking chair in this lovely home that we get to stay in for the next 3 months, and I like this little spot. I think this will be a nice spot to do these videos for us. So every week at this time I'll be here on Wednesdays, and if for some reason I can't make that happen, I'll post in the group that it's not happening. So peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Here we are. So this will be about maybe a 20 to 30 minute video. You'll be able to come back to it in the group. And so for me, I'm going to share just a little bit of a story. For those of you who are getting to know me, I'm a yoga and meditation teacher. I'm also a former mental health counselor and life coach and artist and facilitator. I grew up in a fundamentalist cult until the age of 13, raised by two very loving parents, but also a very disturbed sense of being throughout my entire childhood. But grew up always loving dance and art and creativity, and I always had this feeling of a sense that there was this deep connection with the spiritual nature of life. It's just my nature. It's just who I am. I was born this way. And as I got older, got more interested in expressing myself through art and creativity, but I always had this natural propensity for helping others and investigating deeper meanings of life. So you can read more about my story on my website. It's rachelchase.com, and I've written my story there and talk about the philosophy of my work as a teacher and a guide and an intuitive. So for these videos, I'll be doing some meditations and also just some talks. I'm a mindfulness specialist. I teach mindfulness in groups and in my one-on-one sessions with my clients as well. And so I'll be bringing up all of the lessons and beautiful teachings that are available to us through the understanding of how we can use mindfulness to support our creative well-being as women. So these are women's wellness talks every Wednesday that I'm going to be giving here, starting with today. Since we're all women here in this group, I'll be speaking in terms of us, meaning women in our culture, in this American life that we're living, and because that's my perspective, that's where I'm coming from, and that's how I grew up. But I also have some unique things to offer in terms of this idea of self-compassion, not self-judgment, rather than self-judgment. Now, this is no easy task. We are human, we judge. It's what we do. And we judge the judging too, right? So this idea of observation, let's just take a moment here and sit with this concept and sit with this in the body, in terms of being present to observing ourselves. One of the ways we can do that is by inner observation of our physical being, of our breath, of the thoughts that are happening, of the emotions that are arising. So let's just settle in for a moment. Now, I have probably judged myself a million times already today. Since I woke up this morning, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's given me plenty of opportunities to judge my behavior as pleasant or unpleasant, to judge my husband, my cat. You know, there's a million reasons to judge things all day long, right? You know, whether we like it or we don't like it, whether we want it or we don't want it. So it's kind of a funny thing to say, let's choose compassion rather than judgment. I'm thinking that it's more about having compassion for the judgment so that the judgment doesn't have to be permanent, doesn't have to sort of stick or be this thing that we are toiling and toiling and toiling over. I mean, you know, I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to over-ruminate or over-analyze myself and life. I think that the more I know a lot of people, you know, so I think that there's a tendency, especially for women, to do it in a certain way. And I think that this is a cultural thing. I think that it's a social thing. I think that it's been passed down to us as a pattern of relating with ourselves as not good enough. This is a rocking chair, so I'll be rocking a little bit. Yes, so this idea of not good enough is sort of hovering over here, you know, and we have internalized it. It's an inheritance that we've received and have perpetuated it. We learned it in childhood. We learned it at a very young age. And here we are, compassionate, creative beings, interested in good in the world and being of service somehow, even if it's just through our doing better for ourselves and each other in our families and our lives. Because, you know, we see this ripple effect that causes. And, you know, as a yogi, this idea of bhakti, which is devotional love. You know, we learn from bhakti yoga that, and we learn this in many mystical traditions. We learn this through the spiritual nature of existence, that there's a way that we can be devotional for each other, for ourselves, for life. And I'm bringing this into this talk today because devotional energy has been, for me, a way to anchor back into a kind of sense of humility, so that when I start to feel like maybe I'm beating myself up, like, for example, I do something, you know, and someone actually just expressed this in this group, and I'm going to use it as an example because I saw it in me as a mirror of a reflection of kind of like apologizing a lot, you know, like I maybe if I say something off, or I do something that I know my partner and I have already discussed and, you know, like forgiven for it and maybe processed it, or we brought it to light, and there I go doing that thing again, right? Then it's like, oh, there's this part of self that's like, oh no, I'm doing that thing again, and there I go, and oh, I'm so sorry I'm doing that, I'm so sorry. So it's like this sorry energy comes in, you know, but there's a twinge of beating myself up, you know. And I think that this is at play for many of us in terms of trying to live up to some standard that we have set for ourselves that says we have to be perfect for others, so that we're not screwing things up. Like somehow we're going to screw them up, or we're going to screw up the relationship, or we're going to lose them. We're going to lose someone, or we're going to lose their love. And this is like a real fundamental root thing that happens. This pattern that I'm talking about, that's been handed down to us of not good enough. And this is something that came up in my training a lot as a therapist with my supervisor, and we would talk about this sometimes. This has come up in conversation lately as well, about the tendency to be trying to always live up to the expectations of the caregiver or the parent or whomever is around, that you want to live up to their expectations or your perceived expectations, right? Like we have to kind of go out of our way to live up to someone else's expectations, because if we don't, we're afraid that they will take their love away. And we do this to ourselves. And we do this to ourselves inside. So, what can we do? What can be done? How can we handle that? How can we undo that, unlearn, unravel? It's in our bodies too, isn't it? This kind of twisted upness about it all. This need to feel like we are doing things right. Because if we don't, then it means we're not right. If we don't, then there's something wrong with me, right? Like we set a plan, and then that plan, we can't live up to it because something else happens and comes in, and maybe we have to deal with some old wounds and be more in a yin state of being for like a week before we're even ready to implement that plan, you know? So sometimes we say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to set the intention, I'm going to go for it, right? And then we get all in there and we think we're ready, and then we're like, oh! And then we go, oh, we kind of have to lean back a little because we're a little bit scared and we're a little bit unsure what to do, and maybe we don't have the support we thought we had, and then we kind of go into a little bit of a cave and we go, okay, and now I'm scared, I don't think I'm up for it, maybe I'm not good enough for this, and we go into this like wounded place rather than going, okay, maybe I need to just give myself a little more time to prepare for it, and that's okay. It's okay if I don't get in there and get that deadline going, you know, like I have to, like, okay, I had to move the deadline, that's all right. You know, these moments of self-compassion get easier when we implement them in little increments, but it takes a real awareness that it's even happening, that we're even doing this. Because there's an operational thing going on that's on, and in mindfulness we talk about it as an automatic pilot. Automatic pilot. And that's why we have the formal practices, you could say, and then the informal practices of mindfulness. And the times that we set aside to be with ourselves and observe and practice that inner self-compassion in a way that says, okay, I'm going to set aside this time, I'm going to do this in a present way, and I'm going to just sort of be with myself and give myself some compassion and notice what's coming up. That practice is what supports our ability to then apply it to those moments when we're feeling like we've set ourselves up and now we feel like a failure, you know. so that when we get into those intense moments where it's really emotional, we've practiced over here this internal habit of observing, creating space for the compassionate energy to come in, and then we can apply that more easily to life. So this is why in yoga we say the practice on the mat, all that is there to assist us in our ability to live life. That's why connecting with ourselves in a real personal way can serve us when we're thrown to the wolves, when we're out there navigating these tricky waters. So I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by a formal practice. Now, your formal practice can be maybe you do a specific prayer that you like to do. And I don't, mindfulness has room for everything, for every religious tradition. This is not a denominational viewpoint on spirituality. This is a mystical viewpoint on spirituality, which is the root of all religions. And by mystical, I simply mean personal connection with Source. That's really all mysticism is. And it's having a personal connection with the divine within you. And you can perceive that as simply your breath. You could perceive it as divinity. You can perceive it as outside yourself or inside yourself. There's no wrong way to perceive the connection with a higher power or a deeper source, the essence that makes up all of life. And what I'm talking about is an energy that makes up everything. That's the source energy of consciousness that connects all of us. So when we practice observing, you'll maybe notice that when you do that, when you observe within yourself the emotions you're having, or the thoughts that are coming, or observing how you're handling a situation, you might notice that there's a tendency to jump right into a sense of, I like that or I don't like that about myself. That's the self-judgment. So we want to observe that too. And we want to be curious about it. Open curiosity is at the heart of this whole thing that I'm talking about here. Open curiosity. That's at the heart of seeing. It's at the heart of knowing. It's in the heart of observing. It's in the heart of creativity. We are all creative minds creating this reality into being. So when we start to do the same old beating self up thing, I'm offering us a way back to what I call the compassionate wise one within. The aspect of ourselves that is always there, that has the ability to hold the space for you. And sometimes we forget it's there. We were never told that it was there. We didn't even know it existed. So many of my clients, this is the work that we do, is to assist them in accessing that part of themselves and strengthening her, giving her more attention. And when we focus on the possibility that she even exists in there, we create space for her to rise and be more prominent in our expression, in our personality, in our minds. So let's do a little practice of observing, and then I'll offer some thoughts about how to handle when we go in, when you go into, when you, we, I, you, we all do this. When we find ourselves sitting in that moment where it gets real, what do? Where we're spinning out with self-judgment and we've gone into turmoil even, what can we do, because it happens. And the turmoil, well, there's many reasons to feel turmoil, and they're all valid, it's just a matter of timing and the intensity of the impact and the effect that it's having on each of us. And we're all individual in this. So, yeah, I can kind of get off on some of these things, tangents a little bit here and there, but they're all relevant to this picture. Those of you who've been working with me for a while know that about me, that I always bring it back. It's always related back to the theme. So the practice, we're going to practice observing now, and you can come back to this video anytime and do this practice. And just start with your breath. Start with observing, noticing and observing, same thing. Noticing the sense that the breath is coming in and the breath is going out. And noticing what your body feels like as you breathe. We always use the breath as the thing to come back to. And this is where the devotional part comes in. I want you to just imagine that you, or just do an honoring within yourself, honoring that you are breathing, honoring that your body can do this thing called breath. And isn't that amazing and mysterious? Isn't that just mysteriously beautiful, that there is even the ability to breathe? And that breath, what that breath is doing on a cellular level and for your brain, and isn't that amazing? And honoring, almost like this breath is that essence, that spirit, that divine. Because truly it is, isn't it? It's the air we breathe that goes in and out and through us and connects us all. And when we breathe, we come in and we can start to observe also the sensations in our body. Maybe there's some tension or discomfort in some areas. Having compassion that even exists. Maybe there's a little judgment about those discomforts. Having compassion for those judgments. Maybe there were times that you had an accident or you did something foolish, that we call foolish, that caused the pain to happen, or there was something that happened, you didn't see it and you fell and that hurt the ankle and then that caused a thing, or you had a car accident and if only you would have seen that person crossing, then they wouldn't have hit and it wouldn't have happened, and oh no. And these are the types of things I'm talking about, where we start to go into that. So just sitting with that, come back to your breath. Maybe there's emotion coming. You notice where that's happening in your body. And by compassion, it's this inward gaze of seeing it. Okay, these things have happened. This has happened. This has happened. This has happened. These memories, these instances, these experiences. And then we bring our focus back to breath a little bit. We let those emotions come that are just there about these experiences or about these thoughts. We give ourselves permission to feel maybe something that we go, why do I still feel that way? I shouldn't feel that way. Well, this is the judging of the judging of the judging, right? We do feel that way. That's just where we are. We're feeling these emotions because our emotions are who we are. You know, we are feeling beings. So maybe coming to some kind of observation, observatory, neutral statement that maybe you could say something like, okay, I'm beating myself up a little bit about this accident that happened or whatever, or this word I said, or, you know, observing that and then just saying, okay, humans are feeling beings. There was a lot of stress happening in that situation. I'm going to attempt to let go of the resentment here. Give myself permission to be a human in this confusing thing we call life. And just breathe through. Let the emotion do what it needs to do, because emotion is a big part of this. The work that I help people with is really on the emotional level. Because there's so much suppressed emotion that gets in the way of our ability of being able to think clearly and find the neutral mind place. There's a lot of loss and a lot of grief about what could have been. Or about the fear of losing love, or about the fear of, oh, this is all going good now, but when is the other shoe going to drop? I always mess it up. Or whatever that is that plays out in your mind. I know I have my own scripts that run that I have to look at and say, okay, there's that old thing playing again. I'm going to just kind of maybe have a visualization for it, let it float on out, maybe create an awareness of energy coming into the body that helps to just dissolve it. Maybe bringing the hands on the body again to hold the space. Breathe through it. So the formal practice of sitting and being with the self, yourself, the aspects of yourself, with your breath, can look like different things. You can pause throughout your day here and there. Just take little pauses. Just pause, stop what you're doing, pause, notice the breath, look around your space, notice your space that you're in. Give yourself a little room to feel what you're feeling. Invite in fresh awareness and a new response. Because that automatic pilot is tricky. It sneaks up on you. It just comes in and does its thing. So that's what we're working with here, with the self-compassion and letting go of the self-judgment, or at least aware when it comes so that we can soften around it. And then if there needs to be amends that need to be made, make amends, but don't beat yourself up over it. And I know that's not easy, but it does get easier the more you notice that it's happening. So what to do when you start to get into turmoil with it. The idea is to start to catch it, but just a little before it happens. Start to kind of notice that it's starting to come on before it spins out. And catch it just a little bit sooner every time. So you might get in there and go, oh, I missed the start. Oh, I didn't catch it. That's okay. The fact that you're even noticing it now is increasing a whole new space of self-awareness in your mind. So you catch it as soon as you can, and you pause. You literally stop. You say, okay, I'm going to pause and take these breaths. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, 4 breaths. And you re-ground yourself back into your body and the earth. And you come back into compassionate, wise one that says, okay, here we are, we're all human. We're going through this crazy thing called life. And this wild ride, this mystery. I'm going to bow to the breath and honor. Just be in a kind of devotion for this humanity that's being played out right now. And you can ask for strength at that point. Be in this humble gratitude to the possibility that there is some love here within yourself, that you can possibly find some kind of way to remember that there is a way back to that unconditional loving voice that can say, no matter what you do, I love you. So I think that that pretty much brings us full circle to the teachings that wanted to come through for us for self-compassion today, and maybe the reasons why we get locked in self-judgment is the fear of the losing of love and those imprints that I talked about in the beginning of the video, where we have felt that, you know, if we don't live up to those expectations, that love will be taken away from us. And then we start to do it to ourselves. So here's an opportunity to create a new story that says, no matter what you do, I love you. No matter what you do, I love you. So I think that's going to be my mantra for the week as I hold space for myself in these transitions that I'm going through, and I hope that this serves you in some way today. And thank you, Lisa. I'm so glad you got to be here today too, and I appreciate your existence as well. I can feel you through the ethers that we're all in this space together, and it's a beautiful place to be. So thank you for sharing with me. Peace, blessings, and I'll see y'all soon.